this topic that we have today, will AI take over the content marketing? We have been thinking about it for a while to do an event on content marketing, and we were thinking what topics to take. And actually, I think that there are many topics we could cover, but this, at least to me, it seems to me that this is like the most like future-proof topic. So whatever else we discuss may or may not be relevant in 1 or 2 years, but this is a solid topic, I think, to discuss. So I hope that we enjoy today, and as always, we have amazing speakers. But 2 words about, since our audience today is very international, I'm guessing that there might be people who don't know about the community. So a couple of words about the community. So the Awesome Marketers is a community mainly Slack based in Finland that talks about marketing in English. We now say that we are the only community like this. And we discuss topics related to marketing. We do events. We help people find their first job. We help with challenges that people who are already working in marketing encounter. And generally, we just have a lot of good time. So please join us on Slack. And in our other channels, I'm going to post links, I think, closer to the end of the event. But yes, this is Anna. Thank you so much. I have help from Anna. But without further ado, I'm gonna introduce our amazing speakers today. So as always, we are trying to get the best panel that we can. And these are the speakers for today. So very warm welcome, Jessi Christian. Jessi is an experienced content writer who works freelance for startups and solopreneurs. As a former journalist, Jessi loves the written word and doesn't see a robot replacing her anytime soon. Welcome, Jessi.
Thank you, Ekaterina.
Yes, so there's already a little bit of opinion in that statement. So next up, Colm. Colm Searcoid is the content marketing manager at GetJenny. He writes about AI chatbots and how they help people evolve their career opportunities while still getting the basic work done well. Colm is a firm believer in a controlled balance between AI and humans. Use machines to produce results, but always with human-led quality control. Welcome, Colm.
Hello, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yes, great to have you here. And last but not least, Raitis. Raitis joined us a little bit more recently than the others, so we're super excited to have him today. Raitis Velps is the head of marketing at Corebook. When he's not leading marketing efforts at Corebook or reading digital marketing lectures for school in Latvia, he likes to dig deep in what is coming and where tech is moving to. Raitis is a firm believer that we are seeing just the tip of the iceberg for AI and its role in our future. Welcome, Raitis.
Hey everyone, I'm very humbled and honored to be here for you all. So very excited for this chat.
Yes, amazing. So I want to kickstart this this party today by sharing something with you that I myself have encountered maybe half a year ago. No, already almost a year ago. I'm going to share my screen shortly. All right, can you see my screen?
Yeah, we can.
Yes. Awesome. So this is an article, like as usual, I was reading one of the mornings I was reading Guardian because that's something I do. And I was hit by this headline. A robot wrote this entire article. Are you scared yet human? And in the author's line said GPT-3. So naturally, this caught my attention. I kept reading. And I'm going to share it now in the chat. And to my awe, I saw a whole article written by artificial intelligence also on the topic of robots. So just to share, I'm going to share in the chat, but just to show you that this is the size of the article, and also it goes from the first person. I'm not a human, I'm a robot, and so on. So it shares opinions as it goes, and it keeps to the topic. And it's a really well written piece. So I saw that, but this says articles more than 7 months old. So I think this is last year. But that's something that just clicked in my mind, and I was like, okay, so that happens with us right now. Yeah. So this is from where came more or less the idea for the concept today. And I know it has been announced already, but what we have done for you today is we prepared several pieces of written content, and one of them is written by AI and the rest by our amazing panelists here. So we're gonna have, I'm gonna share it already now in the chat, and you're gonna have time to read it, to make your opinion, to admire the skills, and also to vote. So the voting gonna be throughout the whole event as we're gonna be speaking, but the actual answer, the right answer, which piece was written by the AI, is going to be revealed at the end. So this is like the fun part for today. I'm going to now humbly mute myself and start sharing all this that I promised to share. And I'm going to give floor to our amazing speakers, and they're gonna start maybe presenting a little bit themselves and how this topic is related to them, to their work, and what is this we are faced with. And who would like to go first? I'm looking at Colm for some reason, but
yeah, me too. I feel like Colm could give a good introduction, also explaining a bit more about, GPT-3. So.
Yeah, same here. I was looking at you.
Okay. Yeah, it looks like everyone's voted me in. Yeah, well, Ekaterina has already introduced me, and for me, GPT-3 is quite an interesting language model because, like previous ones were relying on far less data to like generate like human-like pieces of text. And I think it was like maybe a year or maybe a bit more than a year ago that GPT-3 came out, and now it's I think licensed by Microsoft. And the idea behind it is that like it has a huge amount of data in its kind of knowledge banks to rely on to create fairly human-like writing. I'm not sure whether I should go into like a whole AI talk yet, which I was kind of thinking of doing later on. But yeah, that's the basics of GPT-3. It's like a really advanced language creation process, language model for creating human-like language, and it's by far the most advanced one by I think 4 times than any previous ones created. So it's a really interesting idea. And one thing I'd like to point out with the Guardian article is you'll read it at the end of the Guardian article, but that Guardian article was constructed, I think, from a number of articles that the AI wrote, and then it was edited later by an editor. So it has, even though the article itself has been written by an AI, it has still gone through some quality control by a human before it was published on The Guardian. So this is, it's a good point to make, I think, and I think that's a good basis for my view on AI as well. So that's, yeah, how about I'll give the floor over to Jessi and she can talk a little bit more.
Definitely. Thanks, Colm, for introducing also the concept of GPT-3 and like where we are with AI right now, and what is possible at the moment. So yeah, this article kind of started our whole discussion on, you know, where are we going with content marketing? Where are we going with content in the future? And what is the role of content marketers in the production of blog posts, of reports, of ebooks, all of these things in the future? And Colm already made a very good point, which I think I really recommend, if you have the article open, to check like the last part that explains a bit more about how it was done. For example, the introduction was written by a human, and it was told the AI, like, this is the introduction, this is the topic, now write along. So like, in my opinion, I'm a content writer, and I do a lot of freelance work, writing blog posts, you know, writing website copy, products copy, all of these things. And you know, for me, that's quite exciting. Like, if I see an AI writing a blog post, I'm like, wow, that's cool. Like, it doesn't threaten me personally, because I think for me, especially, I do a lot of blog post works for companies that want to rank for SEO, right? That's a huge goal that most people have with their content marketing, is ranking. And if a robot can do the research there and can come up with a draft, easier on me, like, I don't mind. I find that kind of, well, both refreshing and relieving to know that somebody else can do this research. And I think that leads us to where we are at the moment, I think, with AI, is that AI can really do this kind of turning data into something that makes sense, you know, into something that is a narrative. It's one of the forms that it's mostly used for at the moment as well. I think the Associated Press, for example, they take all kinds of reports and then let an AI run through it and then turn it into a text. So for these kind of very research, informative pieces, even argumentative pieces, I think AI is very, very good at the moment already, and it's only going to get better. But for me, what is missing, and why I said in the beginning, I don't see AI personally, like, I don't see a robot replacing me, because at the moment, AI doesn't have either empathy or creativity. So Colm can explain that a bit more, I'm sure, but, you know, we're going by probability here. We're going by what is most likely to happen next. So if you use, for example, you know, on your phone, you have the auto, what is it called? Like, it automatically adds the next word that you are most likely to write now. Like, it's probability, it's what is most likely. But autofill, that's the word. But if you've tried autofill, you also know that some of these sentences that you're writing with it are completely nonsensical. Yeah, so what is at the moment missing, I think, from AI, and will be missing for a very, very long time, is doing something unexpected, doing something creative, and then, of course, being empathetic with your ideal audience, which is so important in marketing. Like, we need to understand our ideal audience. We need to understand what is it that, you know, they are looking for, what are their pain points, and empathy, I don't see happening at the moment. So yeah, that's my little take.
Yes, thank you, Jessi and Colm, for opening words. And before I let Raitis take the floor, I just wanted to check because I don't see any reaction in the chat. So I posted already the snippets of text. As you can see, it's an email. and it's like 4 different versions of an email on the same topic. Please give me a thumbs up or something if it's opening, because says no. Someone said no. Panelists, do you see it?
I see 4 images in the chat, which you can download and check out for yourself, titled A, B, C, and D.
Yeah, same here.
Okay, so most of the people are saying that they see it. Yulia says she doesn't. Okay, maybe Yulia, maybe try clicking on them and then they open. So this is gonna take some time, of course, to look through. So it's no rush. We're gonna be listening to our speakers, and the voting is at the very end. So you don't have to do it now. Just wanted to see if this works. Yes, and also I'm going to. Some people's are
Suggestion.
Yeah.
How about like throwing the images up on a LinkedIn post in the event on LinkedIn, and then providing a link to the post?
Yeah.
That's the solution.
Yeah, I can do that. So I'm gonna head over to do that. So some people are already able, some are not. I'm gonna fix that, and then a little bit later I'm gonna post the voting link, because right now we need to. This is a new format, everyone. So bear with us. We're trying something new for you. So please let me fix this. Meanwhile, we're heading over to Raitis and his how his work is affected by AI, or how he personally feels.
Yeah, thank you. Colm and Jessi already mentioned very good points, and you can see that there are quite different views on that. But the main point, I think, which was the most valuable, was the point which Colm mentioned, that a Guardian article was actually constructed from multiple versions of generated text. And the point that Jessi made, that actually it was curated, and editor actually made edits, for example, intro. So that goes to that even if we have very advanced AI, so this is GPT-3, it still requires some input from a person or editor to actually make it suitable for audience and make it actually quality content. That is one thing, but I personally have already experimented with GPT-3 with the short sentences and short content, and it actually works very well. So the thing I think is that GPT, for example, is very great at generating short paragraphs of text. It can really generate something very short and concise. But when it comes down to actually expanding the vision, the idea, the opinion, it starts to break down. It starts to lose logic. It starts to lose the data it's available for them. But I wouldn't want to agree with Jessi that, for example, AI at this point lacks the creativity. There is this AI called DALL-E, which is for now, I think, only invite only, or you have to actually register to get access to it. And it actually can generate images. You just describe them. So for example, you say, I want an avocado chair, and it will generate like 15 versions of how that chair could look like. So there is a little bit of creativity in AI at this moment, and it will evolve and it will get better. And that actually comes to what is my actually stance with AI right now, is that we are starting to see the first look at actually what AI could help us with. For example, I'm not saying that AI will help us do all the content marketing. There always will be the human touch and the human input, but it will generously help us create assets for our visual content. It will help us write faster our paragraphs of text. So it will be like your own personal assistant kind of a tool, which will enable you to write emails faster, write your blogs faster, and it will allow you to basically generate content faster, right? So at this point, it already helps. And I think within like 5 years, it will definitely help us even more. And we're going to start to see the first, for example, brand guidelines, which were created with AI, or something that marketing campaigns, which was generated mostly with AI, right? So, for example, our creativity as a person actually is limited to our experiences and our field of view, what we see. AI has the information all that's available on internet, so it can actually generate something very, very creative and very, very out of the box thinking that we as a humans wouldn't be able to even think about, right? So, and from my line of work, we are already seeing that there is some kind of a need for these kind of tools which enables you to not all use like AI as a filter function or some autocomplete function, but as actually generating content and actually making use of it. So I think that's the point from my view where AI stands now. And yeah.
Yes,
sorry, just
I'm still creating the LinkedIn post. So go ahead, Jessi.
Yeah, no, I loved somebody in the chat was Prachi was asking, you know, what are the basic skills that can help us stay ahead of AI in the content space? And like, I just wanted to, I guess that I still very much agree with that, but it's not about staying ahead of AI at all. Like, it's about using AI in content marketing, because ultimately, you know, it's here to support us. It's not here to replace us. But I think what is important is, you know, learning those skills of how to be a good editor, you know, how to, because if the writing part kind of is not the main task anymore, even the research part is not the main task anymore, it's a lot more about how to target your audience, what is necessary to know, editing the first version that the AI put out. But yeah, I just wanted to tackle on that, because I don't think it's about staying ahead. It's, you know, it's about how can we use it so that the companies we work for, or even, you know, our own companies can thrive better in the future.
Yeah, I would actually like to agree that it's not about getting ahead of AI. It's actually finding the way how to work with it and how it can help you as a content creator. It's not your job to be better. At some point, there will be like this differentiation, like different aspects of what you take care of and what AI can take care of for you. So I think if to answer the question directly, then I would say that the most critical thing to learn and to adapt to get ahead of AI is actually critical thinking, creative thinking, and strategic thinking. So you know when AI generates a content, and it's when it's good and when it's bad, and when you have to make some edits and etc. So you have to be able to determine which of the versions are good and which ones are bad. So yeah.
Yeah, like when it comes to, I think one of the things, maybe I'm going a little bit off topic here, but I think one of the things that people tend to get scared about with AI is they believe that it's some sort of intelligence. AI, like, despite the name, it's not really intelligent. It's a probability engine. So if you consider a massive amount of data, and it has the data organized in such a way that it can make like a pair with them, like maybe a really simple analogy is, do you remember like the pairing games you did when you were a kid? You would have like 16 blocks and you'd turn them over, and after a while you'd know where the pairs were, and there they were. And if you increase that to another level, and the pairs aren't quite pairs, but they closely match, so that you have this kind of, okay, they're almost a match to their own, but so they must be a match. That's where AI is. It's kind of like, it has a bunch of data. It goes, okay, with a probability of a certain percentage, this is what I should be talking about in this context. And one of the things about that is it requires input. Even when you consider like these GPT-3 content creation tools, it's not like you throw in one word and you go, ooh, it gives you an entire essay. You'll throw in a few points and stuff that you wanted to talk about. And that requires on your end, first of all, as Jessi said, understanding your customer. But it also has this, it also creates this kind of thing where you have to do some research of your own as well. And that's one of the things that AI doesn't, like, it can do, but I don't think it does very well, is actually doing real research. Like any of the content creation tools that I've found, they make statements, but they don't have any research to back it up, because that isn't part of the data that they're searching. They're searching through thousands of pieces of text, billions, really billions of pieces of text throughout the internet, or in a data set, but they don't have the backup of that. As a content marketer, you've probably written a blog post and you've probably gone, hey, I'll research, I'll get something off Forrester, I'll get something off like PwC or whatever, and you link to those because that's where the research is, and you talk about that research in your content. The thing is that when AI creates the content, it doesn't actually link to that. Now, at a certain point, it probably will be able to. I don't see why not. But I think still you will have to teach it new concepts. I think a really good example of this is conversational marketing. An AI could not have come up with conversational marketing, that term. It was impossible because the term didn't exist until Gerhardt and Drift came up with it. And that's a level of creativity that AI can't get to, because it's a concept rather than like a putting together of two words to make it make sense. So I think you will still have to conceptualize quite a lot. You'll still have to do research for quite a bit of time. And I think one of the biggest strengths of people is the fact that you'll start doing primary research, which I'm really happy about, because the majority of, I'm sorry to say this, but the majority of content marketers don't do primary research. They rely on the research from many, many other people. And a lot of them don't even look at what sort of it could be research of 20 people, like, and they put those percentages in their blog posts and be like, come on, that's total. Let me not use the word, but this is something which only a human can do, and I think a human can only do for quite a long time yet, is doing this primary research, conceptualizing, and figuring out, like, our customer personas and what makes people tick. That's a bit of a different thing than just generating content. And while generating content speeds up your time a lot, you're going to have to edit it, you're going to have to give it concepts, and you're going to have to explain those concepts to it before it can generate a good piece of content for you.
Yeah, I would like to agree that the research part and like saying, almost like feeding the AI with relevant information you want it to generate. So yeah, the key differentiation is that AI can generate from nothing. So it has to be fed with some information, with some data, for it to generate something similar or to base something on. So you can't really, unless it's, I think DALL-E is actually generating from most of the Google images available, and it's kind of creating from zero, but still at that point, it still has a database of what looks like what, and it has to reference something. So it will always have to reference something, unless at some point there's created some database of unified information. And that almost goes into like this metrics kind of level. So I think that will not be available for quite a while. So
I'm not sure I actually agree with that. Like a really interesting part of AI is like there's a concept called supervised and unsupervised learning, and I think everybody in this conversation right now, like I'm including the audience here, has trained AI at some point in their lives. The really big example of this is that Google went around maybe 10 or 12 years ago, and they took pictures of loads of streets all over the world, and they called it Street View. Street View is something that you see on Google Maps, but like honestly, when you look at Street View, it doesn't really have any commercial value. But for Google, they understood that if they take pictures of all over the streets, they already had autonomous driving in their plans. So what they're doing now with another piece of technology they've been using for many years is they have been doing image recognition. So, and they've been using supervised learning for this. That technology is called CAPTCHA. And every time you log in and prove you're not a human, you're actually training. At the moment, anyway, you used to just train it in OCR. You used to train it in optical character recognition in terms of like digitizing books. But nowadays, what you're doing is you're teaching Google's AI to recognize parts of a picture taken from Street View. And eventually, this will help them learn how to create, well, autonomous vehicles which know where things are on the street. One like really simple example might be a fire hydrant. Like you might be asked by CAPTCHA, click on all the fire hydrants in the picture. It will ask this to multiple people so that it has a control and a test group, of course. And then all these sections of the picture where there is a fire hydrant is matched in Google's AI model, I suppose is the way I would put it. And then when the car drives along, it knows that you're not supposed to park beside a fire hydrant. But there's a problem with this. This might not work so well in Finland, for example, because we don't have fire hydrants on the side of the street as this big bollard. Whereas an AI will look at the bollard beside the street and compare all the images that it has, and then it creates an idea that this is a fire hydrant according to US standards. In Finland, a person who just visited Finland would realize that fire hydrants are those like taps on the side of a wall with a big hole for a hose. And an AI wouldn't have that frame of reference because it can't do that deductive reasoning that this is a tap which gives out water, must be a fire hydrant. It sees a big metal thing on the side of the street and it says, okay, this is a fire hydrant. So yeah, I think although you will, I think it's actually quite soon that AI will be able to create images of things. And as you said, it's already happening. But it's already got a pretty vast database of doing that. And I think it's only going to get bigger as we train it.
Right. So little housekeeping break. I didn't manage to post our snippets on LinkedIn because it's in PNG and LinkedIn doesn't like that. So I would need like text. But I created a comment to the post to our event in the community. So maybe if you're on Slack, then definitely you can see it on the Awesome Marketers channel, on our main channel. Still, if there are still people who cannot, please write again in the chat. We have some, and I also posted the voting link. So the voting is open And please do pay attention to what our speakers are saying, because that might also get you a clue to try to guess. But otherwise, the voting is open already, and the correct answer gonna be revealed at the end of this session. But now we are already receiving some questions in the chat. Some I think we even started to answer. So Julia, I hope Julia has been able, by the way, to open the our task snippets. Julia is asking, can AI help with ethical marketing when content is generated based on data and facts, not opinions? This is a very interesting question for me, because ethical side of this also has to be considered. How do we train the robots to be ethical while generating content?
Yeah, I mean, that opens up kind of a can of worms, because if we think about what is ethical, you know, there's very, very different philosophy streams on what is considered ethical. But I love kind of where your mind is with this, Julia, because in some sense, you know, being like, here is the data and here is, you know, where we are right now and what needs to happen next. And like, it's not a human's opinion, but it's a robot's opinion in that sense. So I understand kind of the creative idea behind this, being that you can support your argument even better if you have it backed up by AI. Yeah, I kind of love that idea. Sorry, the others can add.
Yeah, if we don't have other opinions on this,
I'm still thinking about it.
Oh, sorry.
It's a really good question. Yeah, like AI is like, yeah, I don't know how to answer that, to be honest, because if you're looking at, yeah, of course you should say that there is a robot generating the content. I think that goes without saying. That's one of the questions that we always answer in our company, is like, you always tell the customer that they're talking to an AI chatbot, because that's the right thing to do. You don't make them think that they're talking to a human all the time. I don't really, like, that's about as much as I can answer with that. Yeah, you should be revealing that you are using AI to write your articles and stuff like that. I don't think that there should be a person behind that. Maybe if you look into the future, one of the reasons for this may be is that if you're called out on the stuff that you've written, which is in your name but written by an AI, that can have a bad light on you, rather than on the AI. And this is one of the most important things about supervised AI content generation. You should be always checking the work and editing it and rechecking it and rewriting parts if they're not right. If someone thinks that AI should take control of the content generation process from start to end, from writing to publishing, and then then they're basically going into exactly the same sort of scenario that happened with Tay and Zoe with Microsoft a couple of years ago, where they gave unfettered access of AI to Twitter and ended up with some very provocative tweets, I think is the nicest way to put it. But yeah, like, yeah, you definitely need to supervise, and I think you definitely need to be very ethical and say that it is an AI doing it and it will make mistakes.
Yeah, I actually had to reread myself the question to actually start ball rolling. But to answer directly, if AI can actually help with ethical marketing, if it's based on data and facts, then yes, of course, because opinions is subjective. Like, opinions can vary We know that there's left wings, right wings, and etc., etc. So every person has its own agenda, and when something is based on data and facts, it can be more ethical. But it also raises a question: what kind of data, what kind of facts, who provides those data and facts, right? Also a very subjective factor. So you have to really research what kind of data and what kind of facts. You can even, I could even say that you can get ethical content marketing from opinions if you disclose what opinions on what topics, what are their credentials, and etc., etc. So, for example, if we base content marketing on, let's say, 100 scientists who are experts in their field, of course, that could be ethical, right? But if we base on data and facts which were published in like very sketchy third-party websites, it could not be that ethical, right? So I think it goes with what Colm says, that you have to check your sources, and you always have to check what's written, and you have to disclose that that was actually generated from AI. I think that answers the question quite nicely.
Yes, thank you very much. I can see that. I'm super happy to see that people start to vote already. So we got that going, and looks like everyone was able to open the snippets at the end. I want to now read one question that was pre-submitted, because I think this is something that we really need to touch here. The question goes like this. I'm interested especially what is happening now, what is possible at the moment, what kind of free opportunities every marketer has at the moment, program names, website names, etc. I think this is a really cool question, because you guys are doing it practically and your colleagues are listening to us. So what have you been using? What has been already happening? This is a direct question, I think, to you. I think Raitis already mentioned some, but.
Yeah, I think the most common, and I think a lot of us don't actually think that that's AI. That's when you're writing your Gmail email, it's AI who are finishing that sentence, right? And especially if you're not native English speaker, it helps a lot for your language and your email content, right? So I think that is the most common tool that people actually don't think that there's someone helping them. They just think, okay, so Google's doing Google things. So yeah.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, Colm, you go next.
Well, when I saw this question, I wanted to, I try to remember a few tools that I have used in the past. I don't actually currently use them. And there's a couple that I haven't used. Like there was an interesting software that came out a few years ago called Ali AI, which claimed to give you all the SEO research you should have for your website. So it would examine your website and then give you the best keywords you should be writing about to get your page higher. I used it a couple of times. I wasn't really that impressed, to be honest. Perhaps it has changed since then. Then there was a really interesting one for primary research or customer interviews, which I have used in the past, which was, well, it's now called IRA. And what this does is that if you're having like a Zoom conversation like this, or Google Meet or whatever, or even like in person, you can record it on your phone. What it does is it records the conversation, and then it uses speech recognition to pick out action points, moments of like conflict and stuff like that during your meeting, and then it would take out bullet points of what was talked about. So I used it when it really first came out, and it was already actually pretty interesting and pretty good. I'd really like to see how it's gone in the future. There's a few of them out there now. I think Otter AI does a similar sort of thing, but this is like a transcription and note taking and then summarization of audio conversations. Really, really interesting field in my opinion. And then of course, None of these I've actually used, but there's the content generations like Copy AI, PepperType, FlowWrite. These, you give them some information, and they create an article or an email or a social post for you. Just basic copywriting, basically. And then one that I found a while ago, which I have not used yet, but I really want to, is iris.ai, which looks really interesting. This is, I think I would class this as a secondary research assistant. So what it does is that if you're looking for a certain type of research, it'll go through ResearchGate and a number of other kind of like journal platforms and find you the research which is relevant to that topic, and give you some summaries of it and stuff like that. So I think that's a really, really interesting one to keep an eye out on, because like what I feel is that as the web gets bigger and we as marketers are writing more and more content, we need to rely on more academic research and more primary research, rather than like linking to a random blog post which says that like 70% of people will buy your product or whatever. That is not really a path I think people should be taking nowadays.
Thank you, Colm. Jessi, do you have to add, or shall we go ahead?
No, I think, the most things that I use are the ones that most people in here will use anyways, which is things like Grammarly, that's AI, and it really, really helps us. One tool that I have used and that I find a bit, well, like it's complex, is it might be interesting for the people here who are looking to for a job, is Crystal. It's, I think, a plugin you can use, and it scans your LinkedIn profile and it puts you into a certain personality type. So it's like, you are open-minded, you are innovative. And while it gives you like some idea how you should, like it even tells you, oh, you should approach this person in this way, they will resonate with facts, they will resonate if you're more cheerful, these kind of things. I have used it in the past, also in sales, and like I feel very, well, I kind of like it, but you have to take it with a grain of salt, because it also uses a very particular kind of looking at personalities, which like kind of leads back to that question that we had earlier about data and facts, because I think what Colm and Raitis both mentioned is this idea of critical thinking, right? And we need to be very critical with what we consider data, what we consider science, what we consider a fact, and second guessing the information that AI is giving us as well, doing that double checks. I think that's a huge responsibility as well, but in a good way as a content marketer, that you actually check in with what is being produced here, like what is actually true, what is something that also fits your brand. Yeah, just wanted to add that.
Yeah, the last thing I actually wanted to add about tools with AI that I use now, and I actually didn't think about it until today, that us as marketers, we use Google tools all around, right? So we use Google Analytics, we use Google Ads, we use a lot of Google tools. And if we think critically about it, then Google Ads and Google marketing platforms, any of them actually, are empowered with AI. So, right? So you don't like determine which of the million people you want to target, right? So AI does that for you based on your keywords, your preferences, or all of your settings, right? So also, it doesn't show you like raw data. It shows you actually relevant data that is relevant for you and your campaign. So it also helps you. So I think a lot of things actually which we are using daily, we don't think about them like daily, that okay, this is AI I'm using, I'm so advanced. But when we look at it in retrospect, we are actually using a lot of AI tools. We just don't see them as that, right?
I'm trying to remember the name of the term, but there's a term for this. I don't know if it's called AI regression or something like that. But when something becomes mainstream, it ceases to be AI, which is an interesting concept. You can look it up, but I can't remember the exact term right now. But yeah.
Interesting. I am happy to announce that the voting is going on. We have 13 votes in, and I'm hoping to get more. So I know this is a really interesting conversation. It's difficult to do many things at the same time, but if you find a moment, please vote, because this is an experiment for us also. All the panelists contributed by writing, and we really want to see, because at the end, we're gonna, if you're gonna guess who it is, who was which part was written by the AI, then AI is not that bad. So we're running a little experiment here. All right, but then I want to, so we already discussed what the ethics of AI, what we use. Now I want to address Anna's question, actually, why don't you use it? So are there reasons why you don't use AI, and whatever, ethical, or is difficult, or is inconvenient, something like that?
For me, I would love to start, and it's actually a very personal opinion. It's nothing based on facts and etc. I just prefer to work with the real people. So I prefer to work with copywriters. I prefer to work with designers, getting their real-time input and their opinions on a matter. I have experimented and I have used AI for copywriting and etc. I have seen very good results. I've been very happy with them. I have used, I think it was like around 400 words for my own personal website, and I left them there. Of course, there was a little like nudge that, okay, this was written by AI, but at the same time, from professional kind of use case, I still prefer to work with real people. Not because it's better or it's somewhat easier. I think the human communication and getting real-time feedback and their experiences at this point is much more valuable than actually going to AI and saying, okay, generate me text about, let's say, branding guidelines 2021. No, it won't happen. There is no critical thinking. So of course, the first choice would be, for example, copyright. So I think that's the reason for me personally. I know that there's probably somebody somewhere who's using AI all day, every day. But yeah.
Point taken. Any other responses to this?
I think maybe the reason I don't use is, well, when you're writing for a company or a brand, I think you're trying to create a very particular tone of voice. You're also trying to like attach concepts and KPIs from the audience to the results that your company like generates. An AI can't. I haven't found an AI being able to do that. It talks about things in a very general sense, and I'm not interested in writing in a general sense. I'm very interested in writing in a specific sense, which helps a very specific subset of people who are in my audience. I honestly, I couldn't care less about writing for everybody. I'm not writing for everybody when I'm writing commercially. I'm writing for a very particular audience, and AI can't do that very particular audience yet because it does not know the metrics they're working with. It can't tie the concepts of the business results with our results. So yeah, I don't use it because it's, well, way too general and not specific enough.
Yeah, I mean, I can share from my perspective, because I usually get hired by companies, and I mean, there's an ethical element why I wouldn't use AI and then like sell it as mine. That's sounds horrible. But Raitis mentioned this as well, and Colm touched on it, but it's, you can't really offer that form of critical thinking, of strategy thinking, of, what should this piece look like in particular, because, it is featured here, or because, like when I get hired, it's often for different causes. Sometimes it's like, this needs to be SEO, this needs to be, we're going to use this in a social media campaign, we're going to use this for Google Ads. So you have to have this strategic thinking of, what does this piece need to look like so that it also makes sense in a larger marketing strategy? And then the element that Colm mentioned is, you're writing for an ideal audience. You're not just writing for anybody. So you need to keep in mind, like, who am I writing this for? What do they already know? What is it that for them is like general knowledge? And what is it that still interests them in the topic? What is it that they want to hear? What is like a fresh take, an unusual perspective? So yeah, that's why I don't use like AI. Apart from the ones that we already mentioned, like we all use AI, so.
All right, admitted. So from my side, I want to say a little bit also, because for example, the experiment we're doing today is about sales emails. And I have a little bit to say about it, because I was last year involved in international sales at Shift Business Festival, and we of course have to write the sales emails. So this was really, I didn't know about AI back then, or at least I didn't use it. But I did receive some emails myself sometimes that I was always to me like, this is not personal. But I never thought if it's just like someone copy pasted the template and sent it to everyone, just changing the name and the company name, or is it AI? This I don't know. But if you think about it, why also I think it's good that we chose like not a sophisticated piece like as an actual article, but this sales email piece for our experiment today. Because it's true that sales emails are like you have to produce them in a huge amount. At the same time, they have to be personalized, and the person has to have a feeling that you are talking to, like you are understanding their needs and you are talking to him personally. And that sometimes is even difficult to achieve with copy. Even if you write, I found, even if of course I'm not a content marketer, but I found even if I write each email separately, like from the bottom of my heart, it still doesn't always reach reach the people in the way I want to reach them. And wouldn't it be better maybe to use a tool that you already give all the information about what it has to be there, maybe redacted a little bit at the end if you feel like it, to humanize it a little bit, but to put off that work. So that's I'm not giving any actually response here to the question that has been posed. I'm just thinking that it seems like AI could be a really good tool, but how to use it. So I think sales emails is definitely one good example, but we're gonna see at the end what the audience gonna choose and what they're gonna think, and if they're gonna guess who was the robot and who were our awesome panelists. But this is just like 5 cents from me on the topic. Yeah, let's see what's going on with our voting. I think more people has voted now. Yes. We don't seem to have any more questions at the moment.
There was a question, sorry, because it's directly targeted to me. So
sorry, I missed it. Go
No,
ahead,
no
Jessi.
worries. But somebody asked, doesn't it mean that with the help of AI, one person can do 10 persons work? So basically, it is sort of a threat for the other 9 persons, you know, and how I look at this. Thank you for asking that question. A very good question. And I think it's very common when we look at artificial intelligence or in general machine learning that there is this fear of, oh, the robots are taking over. And they're like taking our jobs. And I've seen this quite a lot in different industries. And I mean, of course, you know, we see this especially in industries right now that can be heavily automated, such as even in a supermarket. You know, you have the self-checkout options. You have ATMs nowadays. Well, nowadays for the last whatever decades. And not a person who gives you the money. I mean, all of this is machines taking over jobs that humans used to do. I personally see that as a huge opportunity. I don't see that as a bad thing. I see that as, you know, AI taking over tasks that I might find also like exhausting in some sense, especially, you know, when you're a content marketer, you have to do a lot of like keyword research, you have to do a lot of back-end research. So having a tool that supports you with that, for me, feels more empowering than worrying. And I think what we will see is that, you know, people, as I said, move maybe away more from writing everything, more to editing a lot more of content, doing a lot more of strategy when it comes to content. But what I see there is a huge opportunity for really innovative content, because you have that support. So that can be multimedia content in marketing, which I'm like super excited about, you know, video production, so on. And yeah, I wouldn't see it as, oh, one person now has this job and 9 others lost their job, but new opportunities existing or emerging.
I can back that up because I work at an AI company for customer service, and when we go into a customer service department, they have a team of customer service agents, and one of the like main problems with customer service, for example, is that they want to answer as many customers as possible. And one of the terms they use for this is deflection. So if they can answer them in other channels before they start talking to a human being, then that's a lot of time saved for the agents. And we calculated in a couple of companies that the chatbot saved enough time that it could get rid, like they could get rid of 2 customer service agents if they wanted to. What actually happens is that those 2 customer service agents get moved to another part of the department, or they get promoted to another position, or a new position is created for them so that they can continue to improve the customer experience for all the customers. Because the fact of the matter is, all these agents have like frontline experience of talking with customers. They know the audience, they're subject matter experts. So when they don't have to answer questions all day, they can spend time developing the customer experience, which is really important. And this touches on the topic Jessi was talking about as well. Like one of the things I see changing in content marketing is if you are going to contact an agency to create your content for you, that agency is going to have to be really specialized in your industry. And I think you're much more likely to start getting content marketers in-house to make content for you, because they'll learn more and more about your business. They'll talk to your customers directly. They'll become real subject matter experts. And I'm not saying it's the decline of agency, but to be honest, most agencies that I've gotten content pieces from are very generic, and I could get the same thing from AI. But if I want real subject matter expertise, I'm like, you need somebody in-house to really learn your business, to learn your product, to learn your customers, and to be able to write content for them. So far more than like AI reducing jobs, I think what's going to happen is people will specialize a lot more and start coming out with way more interesting marketing in the content field.
Yeah, I think Jessi made a good point that with those buying terminals and etc. A lot of manual and repetitive, like not fun tasks are more than welcome to be substituted with AI or machine that is powered by AI. And Colm also mentioned a very good point that actually in those kind of strategic positions, for example, customer service, we can save time with implementing chatbots or anything that actually reduces the time or necessity for real life agent to respond to the person, right? And most of those people actually still have a great insight into their audience, their customers, and etc. And you can't replace that with AI. So either they are moved, like as Colm said, to different position, or they just moved to strategy position, right? So they talk with the customers. AI can't talk to customers face to face. They can't make customer discovery calls. Service is like partly done with AI. It still leaves a lot of other things for you to take care in a strategic and tactical sense, right? So you will just have to think more about strategy and tactics, less about that conversation you're having right now, right?
Yes, I actually really like the way conversation is going, and I think we are moving away from fear-based approach to this, like will AI replace our jobs, and more into how to actually what's this animal and how we can use it for our purposes. So I like that, and I can see from the comments also that many people feel the same way. Agnieszka here in the chat makes really good questions actually throughout the session, but I'm going to read this last one. Agnieszka is asking, if the AI does the research for you and you just read a short compilation it made, doesn't it make you not actually understand the thing in depth because you just got a few sentence recap on each thing? So I'm not sure if it is good to use AI for that other than just to provide some quick answers. How do you feel about this? I feel like this is more not on the writing AI, but more on research AI, right?
I think it really depends on your goal for research, right? There are multiple ways how you do research. You do research to gain knowledge. You gain research just get a quick answer. You do research to answer one specific topic that is actual for you. So it really depends on your way of how you do research. And if you are doing deep research, of course, the small snippets that AI is going to compile for you is not going to do that for you. But if you are looking for a quick answer, that of course it will. Yeah.
For me there, yeah, like I totally agree. But I hope I'm pronouncing this right. But Agnieszka, there's like, yeah, you don't understand. Of course not. There's no way in hell that you can understand what's in a piece of research if you read like a bullet point done by AI. But what it can do for you, which is very important, is it can give you the bullet points, and then you as a content marketer have the time to go into the bullet points that interest you, into the research papers that interest you, and read that. So it's more like a curation of content rather than like doing the research for you in a way. If you ignore the second part of that, that's a problem. like, for example, even today when I do things like I'll go through a number of research papers or whatever when I'm writing about something. If I don't find what I'm looking for, because sometimes I don't, then I ignore that paper. But if there's something that I do find, and I'm like, okay, this is interesting insight, but then the very first thing I do after I find the interesting insight in a paper or a report or whatever, the first thing I do after that is I read it. I read the whole thing. I read the entire paper if possible. Well, no, actually, I read the entire paper. I check what kind of pool, if it was done on a survey, I check what kind of pool they're working from. I check who the researchers are. I check what the university is. And I check the context in which they're talking about this, because they could be talking about this in terms of their research. They could be talking about this in terms of their, like, what's the word for it? The limitations of their research. It's not necessarily in a part which is actually good. So yeah, I do that today without AI. It's just the fact that AI will curate that content for me, and then I can pick out which articles I should read. But that's on you as a human. If you just pick out the pieces that just work for you and you don't do any research after that, that's just bad marketing. Sorry.
Yeah, that's so good. Also, I love Agnieszka mentioned that she's using Otter AI to actually attend this kind of event as a deaf person. And, it made me realize that, at the end of the day, you have to pronounce her name so that Otter AI understands it. Because, yeah, she won't be able to hear it herself. So that's also, like, amazing that you can use that, Agnieszka. I love that Otter AI makes these kind of events accessible for you. And I love that it has that power. I saw that Kishan asked the question, since there's a dire need of good content writers in the market, aren't these tools a good substitute? And there is a dire need for good content marketers. I know that because I have many people who who reach out and want to work with me.
Yeah, Kishan is sort of steering the pot there.
yeah. So if you're a good content writer, it's usually not that hard to get gigs, in my experience at least. Like, I've never really had problems finding gigs as a content writer. But the thing is, the difference here is between a good content writer and a mediocre content writer. So I would say AI tools are a good substitute for not so good content writers. Or like, I think we kind of touched on this topic, but I think AI are good for all kinds of articles that you're like, okay, I want to rank for this topic. Then sure, use an AI. But if you want to have a case study, with one of your customers, or you want to have an interview with your CEO or these kind of things, you need a good content writer. I cannot really can't really substitute because they won't be able to do an interview with somebody. So yeah, I think that, like, for these, especially for the SEO stuff, I would say AI tools are going to take over a lot of these tasks in the upcoming future. But with the more challenging content tasks, there will still be content writers taking those over.
Yeah, I agree with Jessi here. It's like, what I really see AI as a use case for here, or GPT-3 in particular, is that, yeah, if you're a startup and you've got no content on your website and you want some SEO friendly articles, pump in a few bullet points into GPT-3 and you'll get 10 articles on your subject matter. That's going to work for the next few years, probably. After that, the Google algorithm will change and they'll be like, no, we don't like this sort of article anymore. It'll be the same sort of level as it was when people used keyword stuffing in the like what was it, like the early 2000s. You're like, oh, if I put in the word like, you know, marketer in my marketing website 2,000 times, then I'll be on the top of Google. And Google caught up to that. And yeah, like it took a few years, but same sort of thing is going to happen here. For a few years, your generic AI generated content is going to, yeah, it's going to get you some traffic, but you're going to have to boost that with human created content, which is actually insightful, has a lot of information in it based on research, has case studies, all of this, like real actual content marketing. Like, so yeah, it's not gonna replace that. I don't see that happening.
Yeah, I just want to quickly add up that yeah, it just depends if you want a generic blog post or you want really specialized and insightful post. So it really depends. That's why it won't be a substitute for. So yeah.
Yes. So Agnieszka here says that if it's okay that she's kind of steering our boat astray, I'm not actually a marketing person, but a coin student from GY University. So AI is a huge interest for me. Actually, Agnieszka, this is so cool that we have here like a diverse audience, not just marketers. And I, for example, I have academic background, and I, for example, during this event, I'm getting horrified on my own, like for my own reasons. So I'm, for example, thinking like, won't this development of AI kind of eliminate the research? Because kind of, if like, for example, won't it be possible to write a PhD thesis for you? Probably no, but but I mean, these are also, I'm coming from a little bit different background, and also I have like my own thoughts, like how this can implement and so on. Yes, but I don't know. I have a feeling that we are moving to the end.
Can I like jump in with something there? Because you said something really interesting.
I'm starting to rub my hands to reveal the voting results, but go ahead.
Yeah. I think what you said is really interesting there with PhD and research. Like when you think about this is one of the things which is really important here, is the difference between primary, and secondary research. Conceptually, AI will at some point be able to conduct secondary research to like a degree where it cites its references and all that sort of thing, because the data is already there and has already been interpreted. It cannot do the same thing with primary research. If you are conducting interviews, if you are creating experiments, whatever, the results of that are primary research, and then you interpret that by yourself with any sort of analysis that you need to. And it is, as far as I know, impossible for a computer to do that to the same degree of accuracy. At least maybe it might be possible in some biological fields or some other scientific fields, but not when it comes to like intent or intuition, like, you know, marketing sort of things where you're but it certainly won't be able to conduct the primary research. And that's what like any of your papers are built on. And that's like, eventually when you get into content marketing in a business, you actually want to start doing primary research, and you want to create primary research, because once you've created that and it's valuable for your customers, it starts being valuable to your competitors, and people start linking to you because you're the only person with that research. Once you have primary research, you're the only person with it. That makes you a very valuable resource and an authority on the subject.
Yeah, maybe to add on to that, you know, if we look at AI and research in using AI in science, you know, we also need to understand that like it kind of depends on the faculty, but in general, you know, statistics are not as simple as I take a data set and then I have the answer to my question, right? Because there are correlations that are not really true correlations in that sense. So you need to be able to understand a statistic and its implications as well. Very famous example that we had in university when I studied statistics is, you know, there's a correlation between the size of your shoe and how likely you are to be in the board of a company. So one could argue, okay, that's a correlation, size of your shoe, and of course that's not the case. It's just, it appears to be a correlation, but the cause, you know, between that is, you know, men have bigger feet, so men are more likely to end up running a company. And those are kind of like the intricacies, I think, of research that I currently don't see an AI where it is right now, you know, being able to understand, because you need to have that lens of humanity, looking at the data and understanding also what is behind this, just as a little statistics add-on.
No, this is really cool, and I think we dodged the bullet with academic research, because like you say, with the shoes, is like black swan theory, basically, right? If you never saw a black swan, doesn't mean it doesn't exist, and you have to do research, but then you have to also make sense of your research, and make sense out of it to others. So that's the one thing AI can do. All right.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
No,
I was just gonna say that, like, I was talking to a data scientist a while ago about a piece of research that I had, like, and it was just basic numbers, but we were deciding on which, like, I was explaining to him that I decided to choose what is it, a mean mode, and what's the third type of average? Median. So I decided to choose a median instead of a mean in terms of averages, because there's outliers. That's a decision you have to make when you look at the data you have. If you have data where there's an outlier, it doesn't tell the whole truth about the data set that you have. So you have to make a conscious decision whether to present it as a certain type of average. So that's one of them. Really basic as well.
Right, but I think we are almost on time already, and I think that we have to already start to wrap this up. This was a really cool discussion. As always, we steered a little bit from marketing several times, but I think that's cool to be multidisciplinary in that way also. And I think everyone who wanted to vote already voted. So let's take a look at that, and then have some maybe closing words at the end. Yes, so I'm going to share my screen. Yes, do you see my screen? Yes. Yep. So basically, if you voted, you also can see what I'm seeing. Once you submit your response, you see what the statistics are, and we can see from here that piece A is leading, not by far, but definitely leading. Piece B is second place, piece C is third place, and D got the list of responses. And now, drum roll. I don't know, Colm, do you want to announce? I want to give you the.
Okay. Yeah. I haven't. I have to give me a second, because I.
You don't remember which one?
Yeah, I don't.
No, why I want
check.
you to announce, because you kind of were preparing this AI part, so I also want you to talk about the technology.
Yeah. So actually, yeah, what we did here is I wrote out a few things, like a couple of bullet points, and I asked somebody at Flowrite to write an email for us, and like he just stuck the same bullet points in, and it spewed out an email for us. Then what I did is, that was a few weeks ago, so I tried to forget about it, but I gave exactly the same bullet points to Jessi and to Raitis, and I had the same bullet points myself. Hopefully I wasn't too biased because I've seen the AI content. But yeah, I wrote, each of us wrote an email based on those bullet points. And you got to vote on them, and you voted wrong. The AI piece was actually, what was it? It
Was actually C.
C, yes.
So
C
it's
was
not the
AI
first,
piece.
it's not even the second.
Yeah, it's not even the second. So yeah, the AI piece was number C. So it's quite interesting that like people who voted here couldn't get the particular AI there, but
So the
yeah,
question,
there you
right?
are. It's amazing what kind of content it can create.
So the
And
question
that is
is,
totally unedited, by the way. I took the email from Flowrite, I pasted it in format, like, actually, I don't think I even formatted it that much. I just made it bigger and stuff. And that's it, totally unedited and everything. So like, obviously I would have edited it personally in my own professional setting, but.
then the question is, who writes like an AI?
Yeah.
Which was the option A?
Oof, it's very
I
far
can't
in the
remember
chat.
who. I can't remember who everybody was. Am I allowed to say who everybody was?
Yeah,
Is everyone okay with that?
I know that mine was B, so I know that.
Okay, so yeah. A was Raitis.
Oh,
Yeah.
Wow, you're the
Raitis
most
is an
AI.
Yes.
Raitis.
nice.
AI life.
B was Jessi. C, of course, was the AI from Flowrite, and D was myself.
Okay,
So,
Nice.
great. So now I know
I'm
that
either.
most of my emailers.
Yeah, awesome.
No,
Yeah,
but actually, it's really interesting to see that AI fooled our auditorium, and actually, it fooled me. Also, I remember that I tried voting and I didn't get it right. So it's not that bad either.
Yeah, I assumed it was we didn't know, right? That's also we didn't know. I assumed it was C, but that's because I work with Flowrite, so I know kind of how their AI works. That's also the thing, like you get used to how that particular AI thinks and how it organizes like points. But yeah, looking at it completely, you know, without any further knowledge, I think it's very, very hard to know what is AI and what isn't.
Yeah, pretty cool. And people in the chat are giving their kind of their ideas, why they voted this or that, and this is pretty cool, interesting.
I want to pull out Roman Pikalenko's comment actually. So the most comprehensive text was from AI. Yeah, it was actually. It was the most. It had the most detail in it, the most information in it. But that's the funny thing. It's not a marketer. If you're writing a cold email or a sales email, your intent is to create curiosity, to make that person reply. So it absolutely failed at that. I would never reply to that email. I'd be like, what the hell? So like as a cold sales email, it's not that good. Like it creates a lot of information, a lot of content, but as a marketing email, it doesn't have any call to action. It doesn't give you a reason to reply. It doesn't create curiosity, and it doesn't do these like particular pain points that you as a recipient might be hitting. It's very general. So yeah, it's got a lot of information in it, but it's all very generalized, and I think that really shows why you should curate your AI content and edit it to make it actually human readable, or to get the intent that you want to get from your prospect or whatever.
I like the comments here. Like apparently AI made some mistakes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but I imagine some people also were thinking about the length, or but see, this is how the robot fooled us. Not as obvious. Maybe if it were a longer piece would be. easier to deduct. But with this little piece of
Yeah.
content,
But
yes,
like it still has a lot of potential if you consider like you throw that email together and then you throw in a few lines at the front and the back. It could be something pretty interesting to send to somebody. But you still need to edit it. There's still a human involved in making something good, I think.
all right, but we're heavily over time, 4 minutes over time, so I'm
Yeah.
going to wrap this up. Thank you everyone who stayed with us till the end to see the result of our little experiment. I'm personally really happy with it. Now it would be really boring if everyone guessed and there would be no no questions about it. So I think we managed to get discussed some very good points today, and also have fun with this. And yes, let's continue experimenting at Awesome Marketers. And thank you, speakers and audience. Colm?
Just very quickly, Yulia asked if we're allowed to share it on LinkedIn and ask people to vote. Yeah, go ahead. Seriously,
Yeah.
Take all the images, post them online. Yeah, all good. Full permission.
And we're gonna have the video of this session. So if you didn't catch some of the tools that we named or something, we definitely gonna put it soon on our YouTube channel, and you're gonna be able to run again through it. So thank you everyone for today, and have good rest of the Thursday. See you at Awesome Marketers events.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Bye-bye.